Hello everyone, my name is Marc Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore, and welcome to the MuseScore Café. And now I can talk over the music a little better. Welcome everyone, newcomers and oldcomers alike. And this is our monthly Ask Me Anything session. So I hope you've come prepared with some questions or can think of some real quick. So before I get started, I want to do as I usually do and just point you to the pinned post, at the pinned message at the top of the chat. That's the Mastering MuseScore School, where you can access my online course for learning MuseScore, as well as my music courses for learning music theory and so forth. So welcome again to everyone, and I'm going to make sure I have the chat logged here on my phone so I can be doing my best to be tracking it while, oh my gosh, screen is black, sure enough. All right, so that is first order of business. Now, this is weird. When I come over here, I see my screen, yes? No, you don't see it. So give me a moment while I attempt to once again fix this. See if this works. So, trying again. And hopefully what I'm doing that you can't see, hopefully this is actually doing something. So what I need now is to find out if this works. So, again. I still see nothing. And hopefully... Oh my gosh. Okay. Ha ha ha. Let me just keep trying things here. And arg. Hate when this happens, right? Let me try this. And I'm switching something here in which this will make my face go away, but maybe bring the screen back, perhaps. And then I'm going to go back where I was and see if that has the desired effect. Boy, we are just not getting the screen share working here. So, this is a new issue of all the issues that I have. This is one of them, I guess, but we're just going to try again. And All right. I have now tried something else. And see if that actually works. And let me see. All right. I've now tried something else. Nope, that's still not working. All right. Oh, update stream. Give me a sec. Update stream. Please work. Please work. All right. I've now tried something else. Nope, that's still not working. All right. So this is not working, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to leave and come back, and don't panic if things go completely dark for a second. I think I will successfully come back. And if not, I'll restart everything. Still looks pretty black. Ah, I see screen. Yes, I see screen. Yay. All right. Whether or not we're going to get sound is another matter, but we have overcome one hurdle. So, can you hear me? Yes, you can hear me. Now the question is, can we hear music? So I'm going to try to play some music again. And do we have music now? So either we had music or we didn't. Anyhow, hopefully questions won't involve too much playback if that didn't work, but I'm just going to move on because one way or another, let's get this ball rolling. And I'm sorry about all that delay. That's I've never had that particular issue happen before. All right. So now it is time for Ask Me Anything. So I am now ready to handle questions. And I saw I have an email from Bob Borden, and you mentioned that you posted a score somewhere, but I'm not seeing it. So let me give you the direct link to where it should be posted. It should be posted here in the community where it says conversation. And so I'm going to post this link into the chat. This is, link to post scores. There we go. This is the place to be posting your score, and you'll see a new post button and all. And so I'm looking in here and I see recent discussions in here, but I am not seeing any actual scores from you, Bob. So if you've posted them somewhere else, just post a link here so I can see. Like if you've posted it to MuseScore.com, that's great, but then take the link and post it in here so I can find it. This is where I would want scores. All right, so I'm now doing a quick scroll to see if there's anything other than hi from different places and your screen is black, which is, of course, what most of the chats are here. But I'm definitely ready for some questions here. Definitely ready for some questions. Okay, so questions. Meanwhile, so I have, various things that I want to, I can talk about while I, wait for questions, but, let's have some questions. One thing that I'm really curious about for myself is when I went to open my theme music, I saw MuseScore Café new also. I have a vague memory of having created a new version of it. And I think it's because I changed something during one of these cafe sessions and said, oh, that's probably a good change. But I don't remember what it was. So I want to show you what I would do to find out. I'm going to load that new version. And here's the new version. So we have the original version and we have new version. Now it's possible I just saved it so I could make changes for demonstration without messing up the original. But I usually wouldn't save it. So I'm kind of thinking I changed something else, but I don't remember what. So I'm going to go to View, Score Comparison Tool, and compare MuseScore Café against MuseScore Café New, and hit the Compare button. And there is nothing showing up here in the place where it would be showing me what the differences are. So I'm guessing I really did just save a new copy of it for some reason. Because they're actually showing as not different at all. Maybe I made a change in a part, and maybe it's not looking at that. But in any case, that score comparison tool, had there been differences, it would have told me, oh yeah, you added a note to measure 47, or you changed the dynamic marking from P to mezzo, MP in measure 3, or whatever. It would tell me those things there. So now that I've done that comparison, I want to get out of here. So what I got to do is close the score comparison tool. And when I do that, it still leaves me in the split screen view. So I'm going to go to View, Documents, Side by Side to return to the standard view. Now that split screen view is useful for a lot of purposes other than that score comparison tool, but that's what it was invented for. All right, so now I have some questions coming in. So yeah, Bob, that if you go to that community page, yes, it will have a link to show you where to post it to MuseScore.com, but then that's just uploading it. I still need the link. I still need the actual link. So you need to create a post here in the conversation space by clicking New Post. And when you click New Post, then you can paste in the link to where you just uploaded it to. That's what I'll need to be able to access your score. All right. So there's a question about opening MuseScore and the title page is centered. So I think I know what you mean. I think what you're telling me is if you open this score here, if you have a screen that's bigger than your paper, that it defaults to being centered like this. This is the way it is. Now, the question is there a way to get it to be to the left? So, like, by default, MuseScore is going to try to keep this thing centered. If it's less narrow, less wide than your screen. There are a few options. Like I can freely move this thing left and right, and so I can certainly move it to the left. But an issue that'll happen is as soon as I start playback and it moves to another system, it will jump. Actually, I guess it only does that when it jumps off screen. Now I don't even remember. Let's find out. I'm going to start here. Will it reposition? Yeah, reposition, but it repositioned to the left, right? That's because I customize some things. So every display is different as far as how things are arranged, but I'm going to show you where the options are for this. I'm going to go to Edit, Preferences, and then there's a couple relevant ones here under Canvas. You'll see I have this set to scroll pages horizontally as opposed to vertically. That means if there's multiple pages, they'll appear above each other rather than side by side. And also, this limit scroll area to page borders is unchecked. Checking that is what actually will force MuseScore to center things. And like, notice it just did that. I didn't even ask to do that. It just sort of centered it. And I didn't actually want that, but it did it anyhow. If I now start the playback, I can move. I can't even move the score sideways with that option checked. So make sure that option is unchecked. That's the best thing I know to tell you to do for those situations if you don't like it centered. So that much I can tell you will normally work, but again, every system is a little different. All right. So Humble New Music, I see your question about the tie. That's a little bit of a complicated one. I want to come back to it. I want to knock off some easy ones first. So Dean was asking about the difference between raw and intelligent comparison in the score comparison tool. My honest answer is I don't remember. What I think is the case is the raw comparison will not. I don't remember, to be honest. I could plant some differences in that new version. Let's do that. Let's just do that and see if we can see. I'm going to plant a difference. I'm just going to transpose that down a step, an octave, and save it. And now I'm going to go back to the score comparison tool, and I'm going to compare MuseScore Café new, the current version, to the version it was when it first started. That'll basically just show me that change. Well, here's the changes right here. It's already showing me all these notes that changed. G5 to G4, A5 to A4. If I change it to raw, there's raw. This is showing me the actual contents of the file. I don't know if you all have realized this, but a MuseScore file is a zip file. An MSCZ file is actually a zip file containing a plain text file, MSCX. And you can also save directly as MSCX in the file menu. If you say Save As, you can choose MSCX as a format. And it's just a format, it's just a plain text file, and these are how notes are represented with these. It's basically an XML. It's not music XML specifically, but it's an XML type of format that uses angle brackets as delimiters and pitch 66. 64 is middle C, so this must be a D if I'm doing my math. No, wait a minute, 64, 65. Yeah, that must be a D. Although I don't see any D's here, so now I'm doubting myself. But in any case, there you go. That's that difference, and now I know. And I'm really happy to know, because I didn't know that before. I think I had known it and then forgotten it. Okay, so Bob, I'm glad your score is public, but unless you post a link to it here, I can't find it. I mean, I just don't know where to find it. I need you to come over here to the link I just gave you and click the new post button and create a post and put the paste the link into a new post. That's how I know. That's how I can find it, because you can't post links into YouTube, into the YouTube chat. It just doesn't let you. This is the place where I will be able to access your link. So hopefully you can get that figured out. All right. So Chris has a relatively easy one, dashes and lines in lyrics. So I'm going to deal with this relatively easy question here. If I create a new score, well, no, I don't even need a new score. I'm going to enter some notes because I can enter Mary Had a Little Lamb faster than anyone on the planet because I have so much practice. If I want to enter Mary, it's 2 syllables. The way you do that is Control L, it's may, and then hyphen, and then re. The hyphen is for 2-syllable words or 3 syllables or whatever, to separate syllables. The underscore is for words that are what are called melismas, where it one syllable continues over most notes. Like if it's going to be, instead of Mary had a little lamb, if I wanted to change the lyrics to Mary had a lamb, let's just say that was going to be it. That I can enter it's not capital. Had a lamb, not a lamp, a lamb. And so for that, I entered underscore instead of hyphen. So hyphen is for multi-syllable words. Underscore is for melismas. Now, what happens if it goes? What if it's Mary? Then the hyphen wins is the answer. So dun, 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 dun. Oh, I'm singing the wrong key. Oops. I said I can enter Mary Had a Little Lamb faster than anyone on the planet, but that doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. Okay, so if I want Mary, E is a hard note for me to sing, that high. Okay, it's going to be me and then hyphen, 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 re. And MuseScore, even though I entered a whole bunch of hyphens, MuseScore doesn't put a hyphen under every note. It spaces them out according to a particular algorithm, and there's a setting for that. If you go to Format, Style, Lyrics, you'll see there's settings here that control, I guess it spaces them every 16 staff spaces is what it does. So yes, if it's both a multi-syllable word and a melisma, use the hyphen. If it's a single syllable word or basically the last syllable of a word that's a melisma, you use the underscore. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, so Bob, how do you get the link? I posted it. You just have to scroll up, and I'll do this again because maybe other people need the link again too. But if you just scroll up in the chat, you should find it. Here it is again. So go ahead and just click that link that I just gave you, and then you can get back to that page. Okay, so tonicization. All right, so tonicization is definitely a this is a musical term, and this is one that maybe we'll talk about more in the music masterclass tomorrow. So I'll try to keep to MuseScore questions today unless there's time. I can give you a quick answer. Tonicization is when you have a chord that's not the one chord, like you're in the key of C and maybe you have an A minor chord somewhere. You're not in the key of A minor, you're in the key of C, but you precede that A minor chord with its own 5 chord, with an E major chord or an E7 chord. It's taking some chord in the song that's not the actual 1 chord and you're giving it a 5. For more information, Music Masterclass tomorrow. Okay, so trying to score some old audio. First step is to I would get out a pencil and paper and start trying to write down what you hear and get as much of it figured out as you can before even trying to go to MuseScore. That would be my advice there. Is there a way to check XML? When you export music XML, try to import into Dorico, they'll report errors. Yeah, that's how you check it. You load it into a program that will check errors for you. Part of the thing is there's different versions of XML, and so a program that's expecting one version but gets another version will see errors. Generally speaking, MuseScore shouldn't include errors. So if you get an error, if you export something from MuseScore and then another program reports an error on it, you should report that in the forum to so we can investigate what went wrong. But that's how you check. You just import it into a program that does the checking. So that's the best answer I can give there. Anna's question about MIDI to go into as separate staves into different tracks. It should already be the case that if you have separate instruments, okay, maybe that's the distinction, Anne. If you have, like for piano, one instrument with two staves, it will do that, I think, as one track. I think it'll put the two different staves on different MIDI channels, but it will put them in the same track. So in your digital audio workstation or DAW, you can maybe get it to separate tracks based on channels. If your DAW can't do that, then go back to MuseScore, and instead of having one instrument with two staves, make sure your piano is two separate instruments. Otherwise, separate instruments should already become separate tracks in the MIDI file. And I think I did see maybe someone answer about that. But yeah, that's the case. It's not separate tracks per staff. It's separate tracks per instrument. So what does it say this about? Melisma needs an underscore. Yes, because how would it know otherwise? I guess there could be like some AI or something to try to figure out what you're doing. But if you have, if you just type a bunch of spaces now, it could guess that maybe you mean this to be a melisma, but maybe not. Maybe you're just trying to get to another note and you're planning to go back and fill those syllables in later. So no, you if you want melisma, you type me and then re. I guess I left out the A. So those were all underscores that I was typing there to get that melisma. So I'm basically mostly caught up. Maureen has a question that I also will kind of come back to, but I will try to answer this. How much adjustment will be needed for MuseScore 3s when converting to MuseScore 4? The answer is going to be a variation of the answer to MuseScore 2 versus MuseScore 3. And that is, if you accepted the defaults and just lived with the fact that MuseScore's 3 defaults aren't ideal, but they're pretty good, MuseScore 4 is just going to look better, and you won't have to adjust a thing. If you made adjustments based on the fact that the defaults in MuseScore weren't ideal, when you get to MuseScore 4 and the defaults are better, some of those defaults will now be counterproductive and you'll have to reset them. And it will offer to do that for you. So a lot of things you won't have to do anything fancy at all. But it will definitely be the case that if there's other fancy adjustments you made, not just to work around limitations, but to create some custom layout or something, it's going to be case by case. Some of that's just going to work perfectly. Some of it might need readjustment. And a lot of this is still being developed. But a lot of this is still being developed as far as some of the things like music spacing. There was a recent change that was just put here. And in fact, I'm pretty excited by it. So I'm going to show you this thing. Do I know how to get there? Yes, I do. I want to show you a preview of some code that was just put into place yesterday. And this code is not in the current MuseScore 4 builds. It hasn't been merged yet. And so, MuseScore 4, we went to an alpha release last week, but it's a private alpha. We didn't put out a big notification about it. And you have to have a GitHub account. So you basically have to be a software developer or, play one on TV to be able to download it. But there will be a public alpha release coming soon, probably within the next week or so. I don't really know. But let me show you some of the changes that were just made. So right now, MuseScore will do this. If you have some 16th notes and then that last 16th note is a chord with a bunch of accidentals, it will not allow those accidentals to tuck under the previous notes. Well, the change that was just made will allow that. And there's all sorts of other changes where yeah, it's hard to even tell what some of these before and afters are actually showing me, but that gives you a really good idea right there. It's this idea of tucking things underneath other things, or in this case, tucking them above other things. It also has to do with the spacing. If you've got triplets against eighth notes, do they are they allowed to overlap at all? And you can kind of see that in like this example here, this five tuplet here against this triplet here, this note there in the five tuplet is not allowed to overlap with that note. But in the improved version, they overlap slightly, so that they can take less space. So anyhow, those are some of the improvements coming. So any adjustments you made to work around limitations like that are now going to be counterproductive. And so if you reduced space to work around that kind of stuff, now you're going to have too little space. And the answer will just be to reset that adjustment. So anyhow, those are some of the kinds of changes that are coming. And I'm pretty excited because it's a lot of things that used to require a lot of things that used to require a lot of manual adjustment won't anymore. So Bob Borden, how to post your score. Again, you need to click the new post button. I'm on the wrong tab here. So you should see a new post button there. If you don't, it's because you haven't joined the community yet. So you'll have to click the login button here and join the community. And that's why I specifically mentioned that in my newsletter. So it is a little bit of a process, but that's how it works. Okay, so I do want to come back now to edit a template. So I haven't forgotten Humble New Music. I haven't forgotten your question about ties, and I'm going to come back to it very briefly. There's a question about editing templates. So if you saved a jazz template without measure numbers and you'd like to add them, we'll just reload the template, make the change, and save it. So like I have a whole bunch of templates that I've saved. And if you've never seen a template before, it's just a MuseScore file that you save to a special place. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to open, not from my regular folders here, but I'm going to go to my scores folder, and then I'm going to go up a level to my templates folder. This is where I've saved a whole ton of scores. And I actually did the same thing with, I created a jazz piano template, and then I changed my mind about the measure numbers. So I'm opening that score now, and yes, it has measure numbers at the beginning of every system. If I now change my mind and decide I want them on every measure, then what I'll do is just go to Format, Style, Measure Numbers, and say I want them at an interval of one measure. Now they'll be there on every measure, and now I would just resave the template and just, Control S to save it. So it's just a question of opening that template directly, not creating a new score from it, but directly opening your template from your templates folder and then saving it. So to create a template, you just create a score, set it up however you want, and save it to your templates folder. It's that simple. To reset your palette, and I do this, actually did this, I almost did it on camera, and then I didn't because I figured no one would care. But like I have this cafe workspace that I create so I can play around in the cafe and then not mess things up, so that next week I can just reset it. But if you're just in your basic workspace or your advanced workspace or any workspace at all, you go to View, Workspaces, Reset Workspace. That'll reset all the changes you made in that workspace. That'll include the palettes, any toolbar customizations, any other customizations you made. If you just want to reset one individual palette, you can do that. Click that palette, accidentals, and then ... here, reset palette. So that'll let you reset just a single palette that way. So Frank's got some questions about SATB that are probably also going to be a bit of a process to talk about. So I'm going to come back to Humble New Music's question. And the way you asked it, how to tie the last note to the first note within a repeat loop. Okay, here's what I'm envisioning you mean. You have some notes that are repeated. Let me just go back to my simple score here. And I've got some notes that are repeated. There's a start repeat. See, I'm so used to my custom workspace that I never remember, and I have a place there where I have my repeats, but okay, they're down here. Repeats, and then I put an end repeat here, and I want to note here, and this time it's going to be dum bum 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 ba da dum. Right, so this is a variation on Beethoven's Ninth Ode to Joy arrangement, where he has the tied over note at the end of the measure. So tied over note, if I want to tie this note back to the beginning, there is no direct way to do that. However, I'm going to post you a link to the indirect way. I'm going to do a search for MuseScore tie second ending. And I know this isn't a second ending, but the same technique is going to apply. The first hit that comes up is this really nice how-to article. I'll post this into the chat. Ties across repeats, I'll call it, because it's more than just second ending. Because anytime you want a tie that basically looks like this one right here, where there's a tie into this note, but its parent, its preceding note isn't immediately preceding. The same techniques that are in this article will apply to that case also. Now, I'll show you a quick version of how I might do that. First of all, to get it to play back, good luck. If that's the case, hopefully there's also a tie into the note going into it. So I'm going to do that and make that be tied to this E. And so now all I really need is the visual tie coming out of this note. Here's what I'm going to do. The version that I like best is to open the grace notes palette, add a grace note after, and tie to that. Then I can select this grace note, and unfortunately I have to do this kind of manually. I'm going to select the grace note and its stem and its flag and make them invisible. Did I do it? No, I apparently didn't. I thought I did. V. There we go. Now they're invisible. So, yeah, that, and I can hide invisible objects. I have a shortcut for it, but it's in the View menu. Show invisible. So this gives you now that appearance of that tied into the beginning note. Now, what is it going to sound like on playback? I don't know. Let's find out. Oh, I have repeats turned off, so we're not going to find out. But now we're going to find out. Yeah, well, it's better than nothing, right? It didn't literally sustain it. We want it to literally sustain it. Here's a trick for you. Let me try this. I'm going to go to the plugins menu, and I'm going to try the Articulation plugin, and I'm going to change its off time. So I have to think about this because I want it to be twice as long as it currently is. So I think 1,000. So notice that the units is not percents, but per thousandths. And so 1,000 would mean leave it at full length. I'm going to set it to twice the normal length. See if this works. It might. Let's find out. Yeah, that kind of worked, didn't it? Yeah. Now, the thing is that E tied into the next bar also? Because if so, maybe I didn't need all that grace note business, but you would have figured that out. So presumably you have a case where that's not, like this is a first ending or something. In fact, that's probably your case. That probably is the end of your first ending, and then your second ending doesn't start with that same note. So anyhow, I just taught myself something. That was kind of cool how I used that. So that was a plugin. That was the Articulation plugin. And so I selected the note that I wanted, and I went to the plugins menu and said Articulation. And that is, as you may recall, last week is when I installed all those plugins or set them all up. It was either last week or the week before. So if you haven't installed that plugin, highly recommended. So I have a whole cafe episode on plugins, so I won't reproduce that whole process of installing plugins here. But I will point you to MuseScore.org. Is it? Now I'll just go to MuseScore.org and find it because I don't remember the address. Download. Oops. I didn't want to click that. I wanted to just go to the menu, download plugins. Here is where you can download plugins from. And did I just paste it in? Yes, I did. Okay, cool. So Bob, you're getting there then. So once again, make sure you're in that particular place that I have posted the link to, the conversation space. It should say, if on the left column here, click where it says conversation. And then when you click that, you should see in the middle there, conversation, and then new post. And then when you click new post, this is where you can, you won't see this, hi there, here's my music. That's because I started writing a test post earlier, and it remembers the test post that I started creating earlier. So you won't, all that stuff that you just did is a one-time thing. That's how you access the community. So glad to have you aboard. But now you can actually create your first post by going to the conversation post and clicking new post. Okay, so does Articulation do all E5s or just the chosen one? Just the chosen one. Now, I use the Articulation plugin because that I click the note first, then open the plugin, and it opens a dialog. It's just telling me what the pitch is. Maybe that's why you were wondering, oh, is it all E5s? But there is a different version of the plugin called Dock Articulate. And if I go back to the plugins menu and pick Dock Articulate, this opens a docked window down here, and it tells me to select notes. Well, now I can select as many notes as I want. That C, this E, and this D. Oh, no, I can't select. I guess that has to be a range selection. Yeah, so they have to be consecutive notes. They can't be control clicked like that. But within a range, I can select these notes, and it tells me the selection is 4 notes, and then I can change their off time. Now, I probably wouldn't want to increase their off time because now they're bleeding into each other. But the expected use of this is more for ordinary articulation purposes where you really want to shorten certain notes. So Humble New Music, I know you're here, and you do. I would love to see sometime a demonstration of how you create some of your uploaded scores on MuseScore.com, because I don't understand if those, I still don't even understand if those are actual recordings or if you're like really good with digital audio workstations or what you're doing to make your playback of your scores sound so good. I would love it if you'd make a video and post it to the community or something, and then maybe we can talk about it. I can bring you on to talk in the masterclass sometime. But yeah, you do a fabulous job with those. And yes, Jim Ivey did a great job of indexing this. He downloaded the previous cafe, got YouTube to download the transcript of it, and then use some, whatever he used, just his own brains and maybe some other tools. I forget now what he said, to create a thing that says at 1 minute 33 is where this question happens, at 5 minutes 27 is where this happens, and then you post that as a comment into YouTube, and then you can just click those. These AMA sessions, Ask Me Anything sessions, will be great candidates for doing that, but I don't want to put all that on Jim. I'd love to see if people tried some things here. So all right, so yay, Bob, you've got a score posted. Looking forward to it. I'm refreshing my screen. There we go. Yay. All right, so here you've actually attached the score rather than just posting the link, but that's fine. I can handle that. But yeah, in the future, posting a link to where you already have it on MuseScore.org. The nice thing about posting a link is then I don't have to download it. I can just see it directly on MuseScore.com. And other people can see it without having to download it. So you'll get basically more feedback if you're like trying to share music if you post links. But as it is, this is fine. I'm going to come and download it, and I want to download it to the place where I put my cafe scores. And now I can open it. So here's my cafe folder. By the way, I just added this recently because this is the Linux version, or at least my particular flavor of Linux version of what a file dialog looks like. And it's got like a favorites button over, no, it's just a drag. You can drag a folder into this side panel. On Windows, it'll be different, but it is a similar thing. You can kind of pin folders into the side here so that it's easy to get to. So I can easily get back to my Cafe folder and then open 2022 and Little Green Valley. So finally have your score open, Bob. I know it was a process, but it was hopefully a learning process, and now you're all prepared to share more music and participate in the music masterclass and other lovely things that happen now that you've joined. So your questions, you had sent me an email, and I have them here. So I'm going to look at these and kind of try to deal with some of them here and also be following other questions in the chat. Measure 18 is wide. So I'm going to use Control F and then, which is find, and that pops up a little find box there, and I type 18, and now I'm in measure 18. So I think I have a pretty good idea based on what I'm seeing. I'm going to close the find box now. I have a pretty good idea that you've added leading space in front of this note. I'm going to click this note and I look over the inspector, and yeah, leading space you've set to 39. Now, I'm sure you didn't actually go to the inspector and set it to 39. I think what you did was dragged a note sideways. If I drag a note sideways, notice it does that same thing. So I think that's what you did. I'm going to reset that one. So click the note and then come over to the inspector and reset the leading space. So yeah, you must have accidentally dragged a note sideways. You'd like to reduce it to 9 pages and still have it larger. So yeah, unfortunately, there's a whole process there. So when I look at this score, frankly, there's not, other than that, there's not a lot that I can see that will be a quick win. I don't see a lot of quick wins in here, but what I will tell you is I think you do have too large of a staff size. Page settings. Well, no, that's actually a pretty reasonable choral staff size, but you could go a little smaller. It might help a little bit. If I go to 1.5 instead of 1.75, it's still 9 pages. How about if I go to 1.4? And it's really fidgety to work in this dialogue here. 1.4 gets me down to 8 pages. Okay. Can I go to 1.45? No. 1.46? No. What am I doing? Wrong way. 1.44, 1.43, 1.42. 1.42 got me down to 8 pages, at least. Marginally better. Beyond that, though, it's going to be a spacing thing where, there's just... it might be a question of maybe picking a smaller font for lyrics to make things smaller. It's unfortunately, there's not like one magic bullet to fix things. But I am going to at least go to format, style, and the measure page here has a bunch of settings here, and I'm going to try to reduce some of them. So the overall spacing, I'm going to reduce down to the minimum of 1. And you can see that that's way too narrow, right? It's pretty crazy, but 1.1 might be reasonable. Did that get me down to a fewer pages, or it just saved a little bit? It's still 8, but it's a little less. It's only 1 system on that last page instead of 2. Anyhow, there's a lot of things to do, but it can be tricky. So let's, this is a big thing to deal with, how to do this kind of stuff, but it could be a whole topic to a cafe. Maybe next week I'll just focus on making scores smaller because if you think about it, that thing that I showed you all a bit ago here about this thing that, is going to, in MuseScore 4, allow things to overlap. This is going to allow scores to take less space because now there won't be as much extra space to prevent those overlaps. So MuseScore 4 is going to be better. But MuseScore 3, meanwhile, that's something we often have to do, is figure out ways of taking less space. So maybe I'll just do a whole session on that, and we'll explore other things you can do. But that dialogue I was just in is one that you could play with more. If I go back to that, it was format, style, measure. You'll see this was the overall spacing. This is what stretch actually works from. But there's some other settings that I can reduce. I can reduce the minimum note distance, and that will also allow notes to be closer together. There's all sorts of other things. This one that says note left margin, that's the distance from a bar line to the note. So this distance here from the bar line to the first note, it's 1 staff space. Well, that's already pretty tight. You don't really want it tighter, but if you do reduce it, I can reduce it to the point of, I can reduce it down to 0, and now you can see these notes are touching the bar line. You don't really want that, though. So to some extent, you know, smaller music or bigger paper is the answer, really. But yeah, you can play with some of these settings. That note, what did I do? Note left margin, 1 point. I guess I hit the reset and it doesn't actually, it's interesting to me that it didn't, usually when I hit these reset buttons, it would have an effect. And looks like 1.3 is, I don't know. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. Usually if I hit that reset button, it would then gray out to say, now I'm reset. And I don't understand why it didn't. If I do it here, that happens, right? It reset to 1.2 and then grayed itself out. So there must have been some other customization or something going on. Oh, it might be an older score, and that is the default in an older version of MuseScore. So maybe that's what was going on. To be honest, I don't know, but I will reduce it down. Or maybe the older default was 1.0, the new one's 1.3. Anyhow, you'll see other distances in here, the margin in front of a key signature, after a key signature. So you can gain a little bit by fiddling with all those things. And those are the kinds of things I can talk about more going forward. But yeah, I think for the amount of music you have, getting it to 8 pages is better than 9, right? Because it's only 4 sheets of paper. The other thing is page size wise, you've got letter paper, and that's okay. But you probably know that, or maybe if you do a lot of choral music is typically printed on smaller paper so that it can be held in the hand comfortably open. And that's also because it's held in the hand, it can be printed a little smaller than typical sheet music, right? Piano sheet music is arm's length away, full arm's length away, sitting on the desk. Or if you're playing clarinet, it's the bell of your clarinet's distance away at your music stand. Choral music, you can hold as close to as your face as you really want to. So it's typically printed a little smaller because we can hold it closer, and on slightly smaller paper to make it easier to hold. And that's also, unfortunately, going to affect this. The actual page size for it's called Ottavo, OTT, and I don't think MuseScore has, or is it OT or Octave? Either way, it doesn't seem to have it because I'm typing those letters into this thing here, and it's not jumping me there. So I guess it doesn't know those, which is unfortunate. But it's smaller than letter, and therefore that's not going to do you any favors. It's going to not make it easier to get it onto fewer pages, but it's a fact of life at some point. All right, let me jump back to the chat, see what else I've missed here. I haven't missed anything. But yeah, it's probably possible to get it down from 8 to 7, but to get it down to 6, which would be the only thing that would shave you a page turn and a piece of paper, I think it's going to be unreadable. So I think getting it down to 8 is a worthy goal. Nothing else probably is. What else have I missed here? Oh, Frank's questions about setting up for SATB, and then I'll probably be about done. Let me just really read Frank's questions here. Setting up for SATB. Wants SNA in one, and also export separate. Okay, man. Let me read more carefully. SNA in one stave in only parts of the score. Oh, so you mean you want it to be 4 staves for part of the score, 2 staves for other parts, and then export all that separately. Good luck is my answer. I'll show you my trick that I would use to answer questions like this. I'm going to create a new score, and I'm going to say I'll use the SATB template, and actually I'm going to use the closed score template because it's got some magic in it to allow for separation of the voices. So closed score meaning SA in one staff, TB in another. So I'm going to use that template, and it's got some magic in it that will allow me to separate out the sopranos from the altos in MP3 files. Then I'm just going to add more staves. Okay? And what I'm going to do is add 4 more. I'm going to go to vocals and add a soprano, an alto, a tenor, and a bass. And now what I'm going to do is use each of these as appropriate. So I'm going to, the places where I want the 4 staves separate, I'm going to enter my music there, and I'm not going to actually enter music. The places where I want it broken down to 2 staves, I'm going to enter my music on the bottom staves. And then I'm going to use hide empty staves, so it only shows what I want where I want it. Then I can generate separate MP3s. And the quick and dirty, maybe if you're comfortable with audio software, would be to generate those separate MP3s and then use Audacity or something like that to join them back together, so that your the soprano part here would kind of stop where that staff stops, and then the audio you exported for the notes that start here. Like, let me actually enter at least some notes so we can talk a little more specifically. So if you have some places where the soprano has that and the alto has this, then this would be one audio file that has these notes, and you have a separate audio file that has these soprano notes, and then you'd combine them in Audacity. That would be one method. But another method might be to create a part that has this soprano staff and the soprano voice of this staff. This may or may not work, but we're going to find out, because now you have me curious. I'm going to go to File Parts, and I'm going to create a single part, and I'm going to call it Combined Soprano, and I'm going to add to it the soprano staff, but I'm also going to add the women staff, but only voice 1. All right, and now I'm going to look at that, and it has both of these. Now, when I play this, I'm also going to delete that as multi-measure rests. I think it's going to play back both of these, but I think I can fix that. Yeah, but now I can go to the mixer and select that women part and mute voice 2. Yeah, and then I can export this part. There you go, Frank. Clever, this MuseScore program, yes? It can do a lot of things if you figure out how to do them. I've never had to do that before, but I've used each of those individual components of what I just looked at. So that was probably a lot to unpack in there, but if you review that, you can probably figure it out from what I did. And if not, maybe post to the community for more questions later. And maybe I'm missing some detail here that's, certainly not impossible here. But there you go. Humble New Music is your right here. Humble New Music. This person here has posted all sorts of great music. In fact, I'm just going to find one so you can hear what I'm talking about. He or she, still don't know, has posted a bunch of scores to the community for various purposes having to do with the Music Masterclass, and they're just really well done. And so, so here's one. So let's listen to this little passage right here. Yeah, so that bum, 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 right? So these were not they were détaché, or however you say this. They were separate bow strokes with a little space between them, very gently done. So that obviously was not just the default output from MuseScore. I don't know what was done, if that was like actually a recording or if this was done in a DAW. And I've always been curious about that. And yeah, I've always been curious about the process in how these things are done to get that level of realism. But that's a perfect example right there of what I'm talking about. So let me just post that score into the chat here. And I'm getting some sort of oh, it's just a phone call. Not interesting. Okay. So I'm going to answer this last question from Marla, and then probably call things for the day. How do you truncate the last measure so the middle measures don't stretch? All right, so I think I know approximately what you mean, but I'm not positive. So here's where having posted a score would have helped also here. But here's what I can tell you: MuseScore by default will look at the last system of your score. Like most systems in a score, the measures are stretched to the right margin. But the let me read it. You said the left. Measures. Oh no, right. Okay. So yeah, usually systems are stretched to the right. The last system will only get stretched to the right once it passes a certain threshold. So like if right now you only have a few empty measures like this, they won't stretch because that would look terrible. As soon as I start entering notes into that last system, and now my thing is going to cover that up. So let me do this so it doesn't do that. And let me close the inspector so that we can see what's happening here a little better. At some point, I'm going to pass the threshold, and you're going to see there. See what just happened? I hadn't passed the threshold yet, so it didn't stretch everything out. But as soon as I entered another note, that passed the magic threshold, and then it stretched it out. So if you don't like that threshold as it is right now, you want to change the threshold of where that happens, you go to Edit, Preferences, and then wait a minute, not Edit Preferences, Format, Style, Page. Yeah, for some reason I'm spacing things right now. Last system fill threshold. If you just want it to stretch out no matter what, set it to 0, and then you'll always exceed it. If you want it to never stretch out, set it to 100, and then it won't try to stretch that last one. Even after I enter more and more notes, it will never stretch it all the way out until, it just won't stretch it all the way out. So that can control that. You could also append a frame to the end of the system. I go to Add Frames, Append Horizontal Frame, and now I can use this frame, the width of that frame, to kind of adjust. Like the wider that frame gets, the narrower the measures get. So that'll let you kind of fine tune things. So there's a few different things you can do there. And yes, I did see a copy paste question. Sure, I think I can get that in here too. So you want to copy voice 2 and paste a voice 1 somewhere else. So I'm going to enter 2 different voices here. E in voice 1, and then in voice 2 we're going to have C, and now I want to copy just voice 2. And so over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this measure, but I'm going to go to View, Selection Filter. Here you are. I use the shortcut F6. That's why I have trouble finding it in the menu sometimes. Plus, I seem to be spacing things right now. I will now deselect voice 1. So now only voice 2 is selected. And now I can copy it. Now I need to reselect voice 1 because otherwise I won't be able to even select this empty measure, because with voice 1, excluded, I can't select anything. So I deselected voice 2 or excluded voice. I excluded voice 1, did the copy. Now I can come here and paste, and it just pastes that. In fact, if you'll see that if I had notes already in voice 1, and now I paste, it kept those voice 1 notes and only pasted voice 2. Now, if you want the results to end up in voice 1, well, that's fine. Just paste them into voice 2 and then move them to voice 1. And you can do that with a number of different ways, but the most reliable is usually Tools, Voices, Exchange Voice 1 and 2. So basically you're copying voice 2 only using the selection filter to exclude voice 1. Then you're pasting as voice 2, and then exchanging the voices. You could exchange the voices first, depending on your specific situation, all sorts of different ways that could work. So again, in the future, if you have a real specific case that's thorny, if you attach the score, I'll be able to answer that. All right. So I've caught up here. And I've hit my own personal time limit of how long I want these to go. I don't always want to go an hour, but it feels like I keep always doing that. So whatever. I guess unofficially these are an hour. But it is now time to wrap up, and I open the play panel and drag the master volume down so you can hear me a little better. And thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for all the great questions. Thanks, Bob, for hanging with us and getting your score posted so we're able to look at it and giving me a great idea for a future cafe topic, perhaps as soon as next week, because I didn't have anything else in mind, I don't think. In fact, it actually ties in well to something I'm going to be talking about tomorrow in the Music Master class too, which does have to do with large scale works where there are going to be many pages. So thanks everyone for being here again. Thanks for the questions. Check out the Mastering MuseScore School, the pinned link at the top for my MuseScore course and all my other courses, and hope to see y'all in the Music Master class as well tomorrow. Come join in the community. So see you all, and I will be back next time with more.